Alright, so today we have a Hantarex Polo 25-inch chassis, and we are going to go through all of the things that you're supposed to check and need to check and worry about and go over, as well as see if it works. Now, it is complete. Nothing's missing. It's in good physical condition. The flatback has been replaced, and it's kind of, there's some butchery going on the bottom side, which I'll show you shortly. But otherwise, everything is complete, and it does have a tag here that says picture washed out, tube tests good, July 15th, 2013. So this has been sitting in a box for 11 years until I got it. And one thing though is that the degauss connection, I think it must have broken off because they put this little jumper connection here. So, but that's not really an issue. I assume it's going to work fine. It's just normally there's a connector that's hard mounted to the chassis, like for the power connector, but this is some type of modification here, but not going to worry about it. So I don't know if it works, but it is complete, and somebody I think has been doing some troubleshooting on this. We're trying to fix the washed out picture because they put the RGB decoder chip in a socket here, but it is an original chip because it has this sticker on here. So I don't know if they tried to replace it and it didn't work and they put the original one back in. I can't say, but we'll test it. Before I do anything, I want to test it and see if it works. That's going to be step one, because I don't want to go through a bunch of trouble if there's something major wrong with it. It has been recapped, it looks like. They did not change the filter caps, so we'll have to change those, and I'm going to talk about those later. So I just want to see if it works first, because it is complete, and it doesn't say, you know, doesn't power up. Easy for me to say, doesn't power up, you know, blooming, whatever. It just says picture washed out, so I assume that it works. And I'm going to go off that assumption, and we're going to test it first before I do anything with it as far as repair or overview. But I do want to show that there is a little bit of butchery going on here. Somebody has replaced the flyback, and I think they did not know what they were doing, because there's a crack in the board right here. Not sure if it comes across in the video, but right here there's a crack in the board, and they put this jumper on here, and I don't know if it's also cracked across here. I couldn't see anything visually, but they put a jumper across here, and they completely butchered all the pads for the flyback. And I mean, yeah, this one for the ground is completely missing. I don't even think the ground is installed at all. There's no pin in the hole. So someone has done some real good butchering to this. That's why before I do anything with it, I just want to test it and see if it works, because I don't want to go through all the hassle and rigmarole of trying to get this working if there's something major wrong with it. And I have no idea if this flyback is even compatible. I assume it is, because like I say, if it was just ticking or has problems, this thing wouldn't just say tube washed out or picture washed out. So yeah, I'm not gonna, in the sake of trying to make good content, I'm not even gonna check anything. I'm not gonna check a darn thing. We're just gonna hook it up to a tube and see if it works the way that it is now. I say I'm not gonna check anything. Let me just see if well, I can't even tell if the power connector pins are loose. The connector's not loose. It's probably gonna be okay. I like to at least verify it's gonna get power, because those solder joints will crack from this thing getting bent back and forth on this connector here. But just looking at this, I mean, nothing is scorched or anything like that. Yeah, so okay, so yeah, let's just hook it up and see, because it is complete. It does appear to be in decent shape. These resistors here have been running for quite a while, and you can see how they're like white. Let me show you what they're supposed to look like. This is what they're supposed to look like, and this is what they look like. So they should read around 7K. So I said I wasn't going to check anything, and I keep going back. I'm going back and forth here, but I'm just curious, because it said picture washed out. I'm just curious what these read. They should read about 7K each. 6.8, close enough. See, there's 7K, okay, and then 6.8. All right, so those are fine. Just because they look like that, I just want to make sure they were in spec, and they are close enough. So, okay, yeah, somebody has replaced the vertical linearity pot. I don't know if I mentioned it, but this guy right there, this pot here, that one should look just like that one. So someone's replaced the vertical linearity pot, and if you have an image where, you know, the bottom half of the image is shrunk compared to the top. The top is super tall and the bottom is shrunk. There's a physical adjustment for that. And also if you have horizontal linearity, where if the right side of the image, if the image is shifted over, if the image is complete, you have the full picture of the game in the tube, but the middle, like the timer, like if it says 99 for the timer, instead of being dead center, it's off to the side, but it still has the full image. Like the right side of the image is shrunk compared to the left side being fat. You can adjust this little thing right in here. You can get yourself a screwdriver, put it in this thing or a square tool or something, put it right in here, and you can turn this thing, and that will adjust your horizontal linearity. All right, so I want to go over all of the things you need to test and check for a Polo to kind of somewhat make sure it's going to be good and to quote-unquote bulletproof it. But I want to just test this first and see if it's even working. So let's do that. Let me grab a tube, get this hooked up, we'll test it and see where we're at and if we actually have a washed out picture or not. All right, so we've got the chassis on a dedicated Hantarex Polo tube. This is a spare tube I have with the right yoke connector and everything, so it's all ready to go. We got our Critical 7 connected, anode, neck, yoke, ground, power, video, and remote. Always check to make sure you have the Critical 7 powered, or not powered up, connected before you power it up, so you don't forget to hook up the anode cap or something and cause damage. So we got our Critical 7 connected. We have a TPG hooked up directly to the video input right there. So we're good to go there. We'll turn this on just for a quick video test, and it does take about 2.5 to 3 seconds for the Polo to actually turn on and power up once you give it voltage. So if we turn the switch on and you don't hear anything happen for 2 or 3 seconds, that's normal. So just as a heads up if you're not familiar. And then the tag said picture washed out, tube test okay. So I assume that means it powers up and works, but just a bad picture. So with that all being said and done, let's cross our fingers, make sure it turns on. If it does, what it looks like here. So 1, 2, 3. Yes, it came on, but rather anemically. Not much of a energization sound, but does it work? It does work. We are not synced for some reason. And do I not have something connected properly? Are we off by 1 pin on the sync? No, we're hooked up right. We got RGB ground and, oh wait a minute, did that just come on? I thought I heard a change in the frequency. Oh yeah, there we go, bad connection on my pin. Interesting. Well, that's no good. There we go. I'll have to replace that pin, but hey, that looks pretty good. Washed out picture, that looks pretty good. It's not to full screen, but first question on my mind is, does brightness work? And it does, but that's all the way down, up, down, barely. I don't know if you can even tell. That's all the way down, up, up. It does work, but minimal. Should be much more range than that. Contrast, that's all the way down. Contrast has more brightness control than brightness does, and it's the right one. That's brightness, that's contrast. Brightness, oh, look at that. Now look how much range brightness has. Wow, with contrast turned down, contrast control is directly proportional to brightness control. Look at that. Look how much brightness control I have now. If I turn the contrast down, a lot more brightness control. If I turn the contrast up, hardly no brightness control. So I don't recall that being a normal thing, but okay, so there's brightness all the way down. So with contrast set to roughly, this is contrast now. With it set roughly to there, I got a look how much range and brightness I have. This is brightness now I'm turning. So, okay. Well, let's turn contrast up a little bit more. Let's go with it right there. Okay. Now let's do H phase as position. We'll put it roughly there. Vertical amp is our vertical size, and we'll put that roughly there. Now we'll do H amp is horizontal size. We'll put that That's as wide as it goes, which is fine. Move to the right slightly more. And there, you got that doesn't look washed out at all. Let's go to RGB. Color bar, I don't know what's going on with this. This could be a TPG issue. But let's go to the color bars. That looks good. And I haven't turned or adjusted anything. This is interesting though. I wonder if I decrease my vertical size, does that go away? It does. Okay, so I might have capacitor issues. It looks like it's been recapped, but you guys know me, I'm going to recap it. And this could also be just an issue with the TPG, so that's why I like to use real PCBs whenever I can. Really good RGB. Here's this black line that all these things have. If we turn the brightness down, that black line should go away. Yep. Brightness up, brightness down. Pardon me. That black line goes away. So let's hit contrast a bit more. It brings the black line back. Yeah, I mean, that's not bad. I got a little bit of gouging issue here, but I would say that we're good to go. Well, this is, yeah, that's not good. Let's just go ahead and decrease our vertical size here real quick. Make that line go away roughly there. Linearity seems okay. It is a bit squished on the bottom and the top compared to the middle, but that's normal for these polos. They have notorious for linearity problems. Now, there is a pot right there. I think I've mentioned it before. If I forgot to mention it, I'm mentioning it now. That's the vertical linearity pot. If we turn that, you can see how it affects the linearity here. So if I put it here where the top squares are the same as the middle, if I go down here, they're squished. So I have to kind of have a happy medium here of roughly there. That's about where it has to stay, because now the bottom boxes and top boxes are equal, and towards the middle it spreads out a bit, but that's about as good as you're going to get. The horizontal linearity looks pretty good. This is where you have to kind of leave it because, like I say, almost every polo has vertical linearity. It's never perfect, but as long as it's matched on the bottom and the top, which it is now, that's good to go. So I think this thing's working. We're going to have to test our B+. I can't recall offhand what it's supposed to be. We'll have to find a ground here. We'll put it right there. And we touch that right there. And if we do that test point right there, we get 108. That seems much too low. I can't recall offhand what it's supposed to be. We'll look it up and find out and adjust accordingly. Actually, let me do that real quick. Let me look it up and see what it's supposed to be. And, well, no, I can't adjust it because the cage is installed. So there's a piece of sticker over that hole. You can put a screwdriver down through that hole and adjust the B+. But it's almost impossible to do when it's installed in the chassis. And let me look at what it's supposed to be, and we'll try to adjust it real quick. Hang on. Okay, guys, yeah, so it turns out the B+ is supposed to be 138. We're at 108. It's supposed to be 138. So, yeah, as suspected, it's way off. So I've got a lead on the B+ test point, and we're hooked up for ground and everything and such like that. So I also have a plastic adjustment tool through there, and it is inside the pot right there. So we're ready to turn it. Now I do want to say that you have to be very careful because there's not high voltage, but there's a lot of voltage running through these resistors here for the neck drivers for the colors, and they will zap you very good, as well as the yoke connections here will zap you pretty good. So you want to be very careful and cognizant of what you're doing. So disclaimer, if you don't know what you're doing, I wouldn't recommend this. So but that being said, we are going to attempt this, so just make sure we don't touch anything and keep our hands away, and we'll turn that pot to get to 138. Oh, it just went into shutdown. What in the world? I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to turn this pot back and forth, wipe it back and forth, wipe it back and forth. And turn it back on. And there's 112, okay. Now we'll turn it Oh, wrong way, back in the shutdown. What in the world? That is not correct. I don't really honestly even know if I'm turning it all the way. It's turning. 117. Something's not right here, guys, because I'm turning this a lot and it barely even moves. 120. I think it's, and we kind of lost colors here, so something is amiss. I maybe just take this off the tube and use the light bulb test to try and dial this in, because something is, yeah, it's still working, but we had a much better picture with 108. I'm not even sure we're really turning it, quite honestly. Yeah, I'm turning something and not getting much reaction here. I wonder if it's actually turning it. No, it's not even. That's the problem. Is this little plastic tool is a piece of junk. I got a bunch of them here and they're junk. So I'm going to attempt to do this with this guy. So I'm gonna turn this back off and make sure it fits in there. Yep, perfectly. So can I do it with the yoke? Nope. It's too tall. I wonder if I could. No, it's too tall. I can't get on it with the cage in the way. Well, I think we're gonna have to adjust that B plus with it off the tube, or if in any case, take the cage off and adjust it. Because the only option I have, let me see if I have a smaller actual driver that'll fit in there better. Hang on one second. Well, that's the shortest flat blade that I have, so I just kind of picked the chassis up off the frame, slid it over a little bit, and I got the screwdriver down in there in the B plus pot. So let's fire it back up. Okay, so it's in shutdown. I gotta adjust this a bit. There we go. Okay, now we're 125. I got a 130 there for a moment. 130. Back to shutdown. 131. And there's no image at all. Okay, there's the brightness. Okay, so I lost my. There we go. Oh man, that is much more intense. And now we're much wider also. But we still can't quite seem to get to 138. I think this pot is dirty. It's 134. 34, 5. I think we'll just leave it at 135. That's as close as I can get. We'll have to try and clean that pot with some deoxit or something. There's 135. I mean, I'm just barely trying to turn this. And then it starts going the other way. So, yeah, there's something with this pot going on here. We'll leave it at 134.4, 1.3. Close enough to 138, but much better than 108. That's the most important part. So this thing, I think that pot was stuck a little bit, and that's why it kind of wouldn't turn with these things. They're junk. But now that we have that settled, close enough anyway, let's adjust our H amp. And, lots of width now. It only went to about right there before. Now it can go way off the screen. Fantastic. Does our line go away when we increase our vertical amp? Yes, it does. No more line. So that was a B plus problem. So it's always important to check B plus. So look at this picture. Beautiful. Washed out? I don't know what they're talking about. I didn't mean for that to rhyme. It just worked out that way. Okay. Well, that was a giant pain in the butt, but we got B+ somewhat dialed in, and this thing is looking and working beautifully. I wonder if we give it a signal from a real board. Let's, let's plug in our X-Men board here. Okay. We're going to have to use a jumper, which I have here. Okay, set this back down there. And it's hard to do all this stuff one-handed, but we'll try it. And okay, now we can turn that off, disconnect this, and plug it into here. And there it is. Brightness is good. Turn our contrast up a bit. Okay, contrast is too much. Yeah, right about there is good. Now we just need to hit our focus, which I can't, there's no knobs on this, so I can't see where to put the driver. Right there. Now let's see if we can clear this up a bit. Right there. Boys and girls, this is not bad at all. So, yeah, not too bad at all. So, hey, I don't know. Maybe they were doing something wrong. Maybe their board was bad. I can't say, but this is not washed out, and it works. It looks great. Camera doesn't really capture stuff very well, colors and stuff, but we have good colors, good focus. I don't know the history of this flyback, where it came from, but obviously it's compatible and works, and that looks pretty good. So what we'll do now is we'll get this off the tube. That's much more red. See how red that is there, but when I back up it looks kind of washed out, no pun intended, but that's just an effect of the camera. So okay, it's working right out of the gate. So we're gonna have to fix all that flyback rewiring, bastardization stuff. We'll have to fix that more properly. I'm gonna redo the cap kit, do a full reflow, clean up and wash out that B+ pot with some deoxit, try and get that to go back to 138, because we're still around 134 point, we're about 135, which is close enough, but I'd like it to be at 138. Yeah, I think that's about it. So let's get this back off the tube, get going over everything and getting it all fixed up and beautified, and then we'll do a final test. Well, one more thing actually. I noticed that when I turned this off, it did not auto discharge. It didn't discharge the tube automatically like it's supposed to. A lot of these newer models, I say, you know, all the Wells Gardner series, even the K7000 and afterward, will auto discharge, like the K4900, the G07, 4600, Matsushita, the earlier arcade games before in about 1986 or so did not auto discharge. Now the K7000 and up and all these newer ones like this, they should auto discharge. This one's not auto discharging. So I'm going to manually discharge it, but I also want to mention this because the neck will hold a charge even if you discharge the picture tube. So I'm going to disconnect my ground wire here. I'm going to clip on the ground wire to the screwdriver. We're still connected to the DAG here. So now if I manually discharge this here, you hear a nice, or see a nice pop. Stick this under here. There it went. Now, so we're discharged. But watch this though. If you don't do this, you'll get a nice zap and a jolt from these resistors here. So watch this. Boom. There. So if you don't do that as well, when you take these polos off of the tube, you'll get a nice zap. Even if it auto discharges, you'll still get a nice zap from those resistors. So make sure you do that even after you discharge it. So that being said, yeah, let's get this back off of here and go over all the stuff that I was going to mention and I forgot to say, and then we'll beautify it and everything and see how it works afterward. Okay, so good news, it all works, but we need to fix a lot of issues. I'm going to disconnect our remote board because we don't need that for now. And I'll set this aside here, over there. There it is. Okay. And yeah, let's take off this first. It's just a couple of screws on the side. That's not going to work. Bring out the big guns. Big gun, kick the hell out of you. All right. And this should just come right off. Actually, I'm trying to remember. That should just come right out. No, I'm sorry. I have to turn these. I have to turn the little legs here. There we go. There's two little legs you have to twist. There we go. So these little tabs here, they go through the chassis and then they turn to keep it from coming out. I forgot that they're twisted in there. So we can set that aside. Then there is another piece under here that just pops out. There's two little tabs right here. There's a tab right there and a tab, where's the other one? I can't see. Oh, right there. There's another tab right there. That's what holds this thing in. It should just pop right out. Nothing is easy. Why do you do this to me? There we go. Man, just pops right out. All right. Oh, man. That power supply is DRY. Those solder joints, I mean. And somebody has reflowed the pins here for the AC input. Okay. Well, okay. Let's go over the things to test and what to look for. So, step number 1, remove those cages. Step 2, filter caps. Every Hantarex Polo I've ever worked on has had bulging filter caps that required replacement. Every one I've ever worked on. And this one's no exception. Both of these are slightly bulging. I don't know if you could even tell, but every one I've ever worked on, because of the heat generated, you can see that one's bulging and that one's slightly bulging. They require replacement. And I wouldn't be surprised if I pulled one of these off and there's corrosion or leakage underneath. So let's do that first. Oh, my iron is off. Well, while I wait for that, let's talk about the power supply. So, the power supply is notorious, absolutely notorious, for having broken solder joints and or completely dry solder joints. Now, this is no exception. Look how dry some of this stuff is. Get a little closer with air at extra dry here. All these joints here are super dry. So that's all going to have to be reflowed. And you're also going to have issues with, I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. So there's these vertical mount resistors. These will get cracks on the solder joints because the vibration from this thing moving around. These joints will crack. Oh, well, look at that. See that? Look at that. Case in point. This is loose. This is loose. And I think that's it. As a matter of fact, let's move and wiggle this around like so and see. Oh yeah, right there. See, somebody has already put a bunch of jumpers here across these things, which it's not necessary. This is all just one big giant solder plane on ground plane. You could just solder to the rest of the ground plane. You don't need these jumpers, but yeah, they've put, this whole thing is loose and they've just put jumpers across here, which will work, but you know, ideally, it shouldn't be that loose. So we'll clean all that up. So yeah, loose components in the power supply. Loose components, dry, cracked, and broken solder joints. It's just a good idea to just reflow the entire power supply. This whole section, just reflow the whole thing, because it just gets so hot that it generates a lot of power cycles, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. That will cause solder joints to become dry and crack. So you want to reflow just the whole power supply. Make sure these resistors here aren't loose, and if they are, reflow those. Make sure they're nice and secure. And I would absolutely recommend, no, I don't recommend, yeah, I demand it. Replace the filter caps every time. And I'm going to take these out. That's not bad. But if I were to set this down, see how it wobbles around? Wobble, wobble, wobble. No Downtown Julie Brown reference intended. Yeah, and that one isn't bad either. But again, look at this. See that wobble around? So these are bulging, and just like the D9200, I absolutely recommend, or no, I demand that you replace both of these filter caps. And I'm going to go ahead and do that right now since I got them out. And 470 microfarad, I'm pretty sure I have those. Let's see here. Those are all 680s for G07s. Here's some 330s. Here's some 4700s. Those aren't filter caps. Those are for the power supply. Here's some more 680s, 560s. Boom, here we go. I need to order some more of these. I only got two left here. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. 470, not 270. I got a 270, a couple of 270s. There's a 470 right there. 470 and 270. I don't, I only have one filter cap? Oh, dang it. I thought I had more than that. Let's take another quick look here. 270. Darn it, I've only got one. Well, for the purposes of this video, I'll have to order, oh wait, you know what? Wait just one darn minute. I've got a parts polo here that I had new caps in. Don't ask why, but I've got a parts chassis here that I can steal these two filter caps from. I know you can't see what I'm doing, but just trust me. Okay, there's one, and there's two. Ha-ha! Awesome. All right, now I can set this back over here. And I'm gonna have to put all these away again. And as a matter of fact, let's put that away. Take these two old Solon ones in the garbage. Put all this away. I need to order some more of these. And yeah, here we go. Two brand new ones. This one I got marked for some reason, and this one's not, so not a big deal. Let's get rid of the solder that's on here so I can get them through the holes here. And I'm not, I don't want to have a 3-hour video here, so I'm not going to go through and reflow the whole power supply on camera. I'll do it off camera. I'll do the cap kit, the reflow, and everything off camera, and I'll show it afterward. But yeah, 470. I think I put the other one that was marked in the bag, but that's okay. Yeah, 250 volt 470, 250 volt 470. Okay, so we have our filter caps. Let's get those installed. And I'll do everything else off camera and show it afterward. But let me get these in here, then we'll continue on with what to test. So yeah, power supply, you want to check for loose components, reflow the entire thing, change the filter caps. Those are the three main things. Now, I'd also recommend, we found through our testing that the B+ pot needs cleaned up. So we'll have to clean that up, which shouldn't be a problem. But, you know, I'd recommend, you know, doing that also. Because even if our, make sure they go in the right way, they go in this way. So even if our B+ was good at 138, I would still recommend throwing some, you know, electrical contact cleaner or deoxit, whatever you have, and spray it in that pot and wipe it back and forth 1,000 times to clean that up. So we'll do that also. Where's my solder? It's hiding over here. You guys tried to hide it from me, but I found it. And these ground planes are rather large, so you have to leave your iron on there for quite a while. All right, that's good. There we go. All right, those are beautiful joints there. Let's take a look. Got to get rid of the flux, but we'll do that afterwards. So no reason to do it right now. Okay, and you know, things like this. This is why inspection is important, because look at this joint here. It's not even soldered in on this. It's only soldered in on this side. That's the only part of the solder joint that's holding the pin in there. This side doesn't even have any solder in there. So, you know, those are the kind of things you have to look for. And it's also very dry. You know, see how this one is rather shiny and that one was dry and dull? Those are what you want to reflow. So, you know, things like that. Someone has already reflowed the video input header pins right here, right there. They've already reflowed the AC input header pins right there. So those are things you want to take into account also. Just reflow anything and everything that you catches your eye. But for the most part, yeah, we're going to have to redo all this stuff, which I'll get all that done and we'll show it off afterward. Get rid of all these jumpers, just put solder across all there. That's all you have to do. Someone has replaced the switch mode power supply chip also. There's evidence of this being replaced. Look at this. Someone's replaced the switch mode power supply chip. So I think this had problems before, and whoever did all this work didn't reset the B+ or who knows what. But let's spray our contact cleaner down in here. And let's go a-wiping. I go a-wiping after midnight, out in the moonlight. After I take a big poo, I go a-wiping after midnight, pooping for you. I stopped to see a weeping willow, pooping on my pillow. Maybe he's pooping for me. But as the skies turn shitty, night would, well, whisper to me. Okay, that's it. I'm done. All right, so that's been wiped back and forth. It's set back to roughly where it was previously. And yeah, so that's the power supply overview. I want to mention the vertical linearity pot is right here. Your vertical IC is right here. And HOT is over here. It's not the original one. Looks like someone's replaced it in the past. Yeah, and the butchered solder joint here kind of confirms that with another big jumper here for some reason. This thing here can come off, just slides out like so. You can take that off and get a better idea of what's going on over here. Let's see, you want to make sure to be careful and inspect, because when this goes like this, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth during assembly, reassembly, cap kit, repair, whatever, these wires can break. off of here, off this ribbon cable. They can break off here, and they can break off up here too. So you want to make sure those are secure, because I've seen these before where these wires are broken here on the end, and I've seen it where the solder joints are no good, and those all appear to be okay. We know it works. So this is your horizontal width coil. This is like the K7400, 7500, 2000, 5000. It's only really here to complete the circuit. Adjusting it doesn't do anything. So you want to adjust your horizontal size on your remote board with the H amp, how amplify the horizontal size. That's why you adjust the horizontal width. If you don't have any horizontal width control, it's not going to be, this won't do anything for you. So don't try to adjust that. There is the linearity coil here for horizontal, the width, I'm sorry, the linearity pot for vertical. You've got your horizontal drive transformer. If you have a Polo that's completely, totally dead, it does absolutely nothing, but the power supply is not ticking. I would verify that you don't have an open winding on your coil, because an open winding on the drive transformer will cause it to be dead, like not having the B plus hooked up at all. So it's completely, totally dead. Make sure you don't have an open winding on your drive transformer. Like I say, HOT over here, horizontal linearity right there. I showed you how to adjust that right there. And you know, that's roughly it for the general overview. You test your B plus right here at TP6. There's 3 little jumpers here. The very top one towards the edge, that's TP6, where you test your B plus, and where you saw me hook up earlier. Now, the preventative maintenance that I want to talk about when you work on these is not just the filter caps and reflowing the power supply and wiping the B plus pot with the cleaner and making sure your solder joints are okay. That's all normal stuff that you would do on any chassis. But on the Hantarex Polo especially, these little polypropylene caps like to go bad all the time. This one here, and this one here, and this one here, and this one here, and this one here, this one over here. It's down inside here. There's one down in there. This one right here by the flyback down in there. And this one is a poly cap right here that has to do with brightness control also. So down in here, this one has to do with your brightness control. So whenever I do a Polo, I replace every one of those, because if you've got any of these that are faulty, you'll get you'll blow your HOT, or you'll have horizontal problems, or what have you. I can't tell you a number of times I've seen one of these where the HOT keeps getting blown. HOT blows, new one in, HOT blows, and they can't figure it out, and it goes in a parts pile. Well, 99.99% repeating of the time, it is one of these polypropylene caps. So I replace all those caps every time I work on a Polo, and that is what is in this bag. I have a bag here marked Polo, and that's what all these caps are. So unfortunately, I'm going to try and talk to Peter and have him get a kit made up for these, like for a cap kit. There's a cap kit for the standard electrolytic caps. The standard electrolytic has a cap kit, but I'm trying to talk with Peter to get him to do a cap kit for the poly caps. So that way you can just get a kit made and replace all these caps all at once. And that's one of the most highly recommended things I could say whenever you work on a Polo, is just as a preventative maintenance, all these poly caps, chuck them and put brand new ones in. That is probably the most important thing to take away from this, is all those caps are just, over this many years have gone by, I've just seen them cause too many problems and too many issues. Fortunately, on this particular one, it's working, so it's not necessary to replace them, but I would highly recommend replacing all of them, especially if you don't want to replace all the little ones around here for the brightness circuit. If your brightness circuit is working, I would highly recommend at least replacing just these ones up here. And that's why you can see I have a whole stockpile of all these things, because on every one of these I work on, I change them out. Now, to give you a more detailed breakdown of one particular issue, let's say you have an all gray screen. You turn this on and the screen is either all gray or all white, like on the K7400, 7500, 2000, 5000. We know R811 causes that. On the Hantarex Polo, there's another resistor that causes the same problem. All white or all gray screen, there's no colors. R40 right here, this resistor R40, drop my driver. The R40 resistor right here, if that goes open or out of tolerance, you'll have an all white or all gray screen. So that's one thing to note. If you have no brightness control at all, there is a resistor over here that will burn up, and it usually burns up because either this film cap in here goes bad. This one right here, or this poly cap right in there goes bad. That one right there. So either one of those two capacitors being out of tolerance can cause this resistor to burn up. So that is an issue. If you ever see this burned up and no brightness control, I would replace those two caps also. And as far as the ratings, I don't have the ratings offhand, but if you look at the board, they're labeled, C176 it looks like, and C180. So you can look at the board and see what the numbers are, and you can go to Arcade Parts and Repair, type in C180, and it'll pull up that part. That's how I found all of these. That's how I found all these. So yeah, that and this resistor here likes to burn up also, and I think this has to do with your vertical size, if I'm not mistaken. So this resistor likes to burn up as well also. And this is all caused by these two caps going up, so are going bad. So I just would recommend replacing all these every poly cap in this whole side of the board, all of them over here. I would just replace all of them on every one you work on. That's part of the bulletproofing procedure. Well, I think that's probably about it. All the stuff over here, the drive transformer, the linearity here, linearity there, power supply stuff. Common brightness control issues, stuff that causes HOT to go out. Also, these two resistors over here are highly prone to getting loose because people bend them and knock them and move them around, and vibration and all that stuff. So part of your power supply reflow is to make sure these resistors aren't loose, because I can't tell you a number of times that I've had these wiggle, wiggle, wiggle because the solder joints are bad. So that's part of your reflow procedure on your reflow, and yeah, those are secure, so that's good. And this board is prone to cracks, so if you do all this work and it still has problems, check to make sure there's no cracks anywhere, because it's highly prone to cracking. Okay, well, with that being said, I think that's about everything I needed to cover or wanted to cover on stuff to look for, preventative maintenance, things to change out, stuff like that. So what I'm going to do, since this is working, there's not much that needs done except for the normal rebuild, cap kit reflow. It's already got the flyback and it works. I'm not sure where it came from or what there's a number on it, 2006, no, hang on, 2006.07.25, and then 49-3097-00. No numbers that I'm familiar with, but okay, well, all right, I am going to cut away. I'm going to come back. We'll have the cap kit done. We'll have all the reflow done. I'll show it off. I am going to have to fix all of this junk here because I don't want to leave it like this, even though it's working. If I ever sold this or something like that, I would not be able to give this to someone in good conscience with all this butchery going on here. So I'll fix all of this as well. I don't know how long the video is already. I'd say probably we've been going here for 23 minutes. I've got probably another half. We're almost at an hour. I don't know if I want to bother with this. So on camera anyway, it's going to take me another half hour to fix all this. I don't want a 2-hour video, so let me, I'm going to fix all this, get it all fixed up, and I'll come back. You can see how it looks now, and I'll come back here shortly with it fixed, and we'll see the after. Ta-da, done. Now, it doesn't look fantastic. It's not going to win any awards, but it's much better than it was. So it turns out the board was cracked across here, and there were 3 broken traces. That's what all those jumpers were for. The trace was actually broken up here. It was cracked. The crack goes all the way, it goes across here and then down through this way. So there were 3 jumpers I had to do, so I scraped all the traces away with my fiberglass pen. And I put some component legs across the gap and soldered the component legs in place so it's nice and secure and solid. So there's a component leg soldered across this point here, these 3 points here, this point here, and there's one that goes around right there. That's the only real way, because this pad was missing all around here, and it was also cracked somewhere else. I forget. Oh, yeah, it was cracked across here. So they had a jumper across here, and it was cracked between here. If I can look closely, they did some really bad work when they changed this flyback out. They cracked this real bad. Like I say, it was cracked all down here across these 4 connections, and it was cracked across here, I think, something like that. So I had to put this jumper across there. So I mean, it's not going to win any awards, but it's much better than it was. And all these wires and things, I can all just throw in the trash can. So that's what we're going to do. There they go. So this is all done now. Not only did I get all of this reworked, I got the entire chassis cleaned and got the power supply reflowed. Now I went ahead and just globbed a bunch of solder on here to make this more secure. I did a reflow on everything in the power supply, as I mentioned before, that's necessary to have done. Fixed all of this stuff up and beefed it all up from where it was all not shiny and degraded and loose resistors and things. And if we notice now, this resistor is rock solid compared to how it was. So is this one. So that's all nice and secure now. Yeah, I mean, if we just give it a general overview, you can look and see everything is in pretty good shape now. Like I say, it's not going to win any beauty contests, especially with the giant globs of solder over here and all this rework that was necessary, but it's better than having the wires there and all these points here where I had to put the solder bridges along with the component legs. It's going to be nice and secure. Don't worry about that. I hear people complain, hey, those are going to snap over time. Well, I don't think so, because right now it's really secure, and with the added I used to just put solder. If you've seen my previous videos, I just put solder bridge. I just put a glob of solder across there to act as a solder bridge. But putting the actual component leg in there will add some security and stability and strength to it, as opposed to just the solder blob. So I started doing that. So that's the way this is now on all this stuff. So yeah, it's good to go and should work just fine. And after all of that, I also did the cap kit. So the full cap kit is done, including the neck board. So neck board's done as well, all cleaned up. And I also got all of the caps replaced over here that I talked about. So we have this cap up here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The one in here is 7. The one right there is 8. And the one right here is 9. So I did not actually have, like I say, I had all the caps here on hand to change all these out. I didn't actually have C185, which is this guy in here, or C173, which is this guy up here, but they're both a 22 microfarad. Let's see if it'll focus here. 0.22J, so it's 22 microfarad, which correlates to 220 nanofarad. So I actually have those on hand here. I have a box of caps, and 220 nanofarad are these guys here, which is 22 microfarad. I'm sorry, 0.22 microfarad. 0.22 microfarad is equivalent to 220 nanofarad. So this is actually a 0.22 microfarad, and that equates to 220 nanofarad. So I took a couple of these and put those in the 185 and 173 spots. So I was able to successfully replace all of these problem caps. Again, these two down in here deal with brightness control. If you have brightness control problems, it's one of these two or both. This one up here has to do with linearity. I think this one up here has to do with horizontal, as well as the rest of these. So all told, everything is done. All the preventative maintenance of reflowing the power supply, brand new filter caps, new caps here in the horizontal circuit, and for the brightness circuit, new electrolytics, full reflow on the chassis, and yeah, everything is good to go. Hopefully that gives you an idea of the things that need to happen when you're working on these polos for some preventative maintenance. I do need to put this back in here. Which way does this go? I put it on backwards every time. It goes this way. Oh, man, why is everything difficult? What in the world is your major malfunction? Oh, I have it on backwards again. I'm telling you. There, jeez. All right, so that's done. Now, I want to talk about these capacitors, so we'll set this aside. So there are 9 total, and I marked them all so you can understand here. So we have, let's zoom in a bit. We've got C180, C183, C175, C170, 173, 174, 176, 172, and 185. So this is the only one that's not polypropylene. This one here is actually a film cap. So it doesn't really necessarily need to get changed out, but I've had this go bad on me twice. On 2 different polos, I've had this one be bad, so I changed it out also. And like I say, I've got all these here on hand, except for the 185 and the 173. But if you notice here, 185, 173, they're both the same cap. Like I say, it's the 0.22 microfarad. And you can put a 220 nanofarad in those places, so if you have them on hand. But what I'll do is down below in the description, I will link all of these caps, so you can go through and buy them yourself. And at some point, I'm sure Peter will have a pre-made kit become available, but as of right now, there's not. And these are, you know, like if we look here, it says MC 1012 for C172, which was this guy right there. So yeah, I would I'm going to put a link down below of all these caps, and what they'll do is if you just go to the website and type in C172, it'll come up with this MC1012. But I'll put all this information in the description below, including the information for 185 and 173 that I used from my stash here. So yeah, so there's 9 caps total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those are the 9 caps that I highly recommend, or no, I said demand. I forgot that you replace, because that will be the best preventative maintenance when it comes to keeping your HOT from shorting out and just giving you general headaches and waviness and things like that. So we have a rebuilt, ready to go Hantarex Polo. I don't want to put any of this stuff back on yet, because we need to power it on, make sure it works after all the rework. I have to put this back on as well. But I think just before we do that, let's go ahead and wring out these traces that I had to jumper real quick, just for peace of mind, because I did all that already, but I've been handling this like crazy, doing the cap kit and the cleaning and everything. So before we fire this up again, let's go ahead and just double check these traces again. So this one should go up here. Yep. This one should go across here, all the way around over to here. Yep. This one should go to here. Yep. This should go through. So this had continuity originally from here to here. Oh, I'm sorry, not originally. When I took the wire off, the jumper wire off, there was continuity from here to here, but not from here to here. And that's because this was the pad was busted and lifted off this side of it. So now I had to put this big blob there. But now we go through here to there to here, down to here. So that's all good. We got to go from here to here. That's good. Oh, there we go. Here to here is good. Here to here. Now let's do through this point down through this point to here. Okay, that's good. That takes care of those two. This one through here to here. That's good. This one through here to over there we already did. And that should be good. Okay, well, let's get this back on a tube, or on the tube, and I'm not going to hook this back up till we get it on the tube to make it easier to hook up. So, all right, that is about it. Let's see how much better it is. All right, so all hooked back up, ready to go. I did forget to mention that I found some extra pegs here for the pot adjustments here on the neck board, and I did take the red and the blue and set those to center. So I have 1 red and 3 green and no blue pegs. So you have to kind of read what it says. So it's blue, green, and red, and then you have red gain and blue gain. So the red gain and blue gain I went ahead and put in the center position and pulled the peg back off, moved it over here. So we have this one should be blue with stuff. So we have red, green, and blue. So we'll be able to adjust those as necessary. These two are dead center, so we can leave those alone. we'll move these as we need to. So finding those, that should be the last step here to make some adjustments and see how well this now looks. So I've got the meter set up here on volts DC to read our B+. Hopefully after changing the filter caps and getting this reflowed and recapped and everything, we should be able to get closer to 138, because 135 is what we had before, and that's the highest that I could get before it would start going back down to the 120s, if I recall correctly. So all right, and for this test I have, because I know exactly what an MK2 is supposed to look like, Mortal Kombat 2, because I know I'm so familiar with that game and know what the colors should look like, I have a Mortal Kombat 2 PCB, the one I recently repaired, up here on the bench, so we're going to use that for the video signal. That way I know what to adjust the RGB to get it to looking nice and perfect. But before I get the camera on the tripod and make some adjustments, let's just make sure it still turns on after all the rework, and what we get and how close we can get to 138. And I left the cage off and everything because it'll make it much easier to be able to adjust the B+ if we need to. So we were at 135 before, hopefully we're at 138 after, or we can adjust to 138 after all this. So here we go. Will it turn back on, and will it work, and will we be able to get to 138? Let's find out. 1, 2, 3. Yes, it comes back on, so that's good, and we are at 137. All right, that's close enough, and it works. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, it looks amazing. It's too short, and it's not wide enough, but if anything, it's too bright. Yeah, it's too bright. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, there you go. If I turn the brightness down a little bit. But hey, those colors are pretty good. We're a little bit too red, but it's working. All right, and we're at one. Look at that. Oh, we were at 138, and then this screen changed. Let's see what happens when the screen transitions. Yeah, 138, then back to 135. So with nothing on the screen, it's 138. So you might want to adjust it to 138 when something's on the screen there. See it transition between the attract mode screens, and when it goes to a screen with nothing on there, or when the image is all black, 138. See that? And then as this is changing. So let's adjust it to when the screen, like right here, should be 138 solid, and we're 137.3. So we'll tweak it a little bit, but let's get the camera on a tripod and make some adjustments here for color, screen size, position, shape, and everything, and see how well we can make this look. Okie dokie. So we are a little bit too red. I'll say roughly there. I need to adjust green down a little bit, blue up slightly, and that looks pretty good. Okay, vertical amp is our size, and I need to vertical shift a bit here. There we go. Yeah, see, you want the red in the background there. I don't know, you can't really even tell, but there's a slight red to the background there. That's what you want. That is perfect. Vertical, no, H amp for the width. Nice. And we need a little bit more vertical size. We'll go right, nope, we need to vertical position here. There we go. Look at that. Outstanding. The polos look so good when they're working and are adjusted properly. I don't, for the life of me, really know why they marked on here picture washed out. They probably just didn't know what they were doing, quite honestly. But that looks fantastic. We never really had to adjust focus, did we? I need to stick my fat head back here, and oh man, that's perfect. I don't know what else to say. It looks, so when I say, I'm looking through the viewfinder on the camera here, and through the viewfinder it looks, the colors don't look correct, but in person it's fantastic. Now I do see we have some linearity, that is not accurate. Let me see if I can adjust this linearity here a bit. Oh, that's better. let's go into the test menu if I can here. And let's do some tests. We'll go to monitor patterns and crosshatch pattern. Okay, we need to bring our position back the other way. This little red box should be visible on the top and the bottom. See how it's slightly visible over here? So we need to do H phase to phase this to right about there. Vertical position, we need to move to roughly, I'll say, there. And then we'll increase the vertical size slightly. And as far as linearity, that looks pretty good. That, as a matter of fact, that is fantastic. Look at that. Linearity, flawless all around. Boom. And we are solid at 137.5 for the B+. I'll see if I can tweak it to around 138. 138.0. Outstanding. Well, I think that is it. We have a beautiful, working, functional Hantarex Polo, and I could not be happier with this end result. Fantastic. This might be the best looking polo that I've come across in recent memory. Of course, a lot of that has to do with the picture tube. This is a polo picture tube, but man, outstanding. There's a little bit of gouging here in the side, but not going to worry about that for now. If anything, it's slightly too red, just very slightly too red, but the pot here is so sensitive that I don't quite really want to mess with it, but that is outstanding. I have a project that I'm going to probably put this monitor in, which I'll reveal, later. It's not going to be till around the springtime before I really get into it, but I tweaked the red a bit. Now the red background there around the dragon logo is gone. It should be around that dragon logo should be a somewhat brownish red background. And if you tweak it too much or turn the brightness down too much, that's gone. But it's not the end of the world. This is the important thing here. Let's start a game here, and yeah, that's this. I can't. It just looks so freaking good. Who can I play without kicks? Let's do Jang Soon. Dun 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 dun. Now on MK2, on the very first opponent, all you gotta do is just hold down, and he'll do this till the time runs out. Doot 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 doot. Oh, good job. Oh. I can do up, down, up, low kick. Can't do that. I can do, well, let's try, I'll show you what we can do. I know what we can do. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Okay, well, let's get this back off the tube, and I will put the cages and things back on. We'll give it another quick glance with it all back together, and we'll give it a thumbs up and call it done. Okay, let's get these cages back on, talk a little bit more about this, and call it done. Make sure we line these up in the spots where they're supposed to be. He says as he fails to do so. Okay. Success on that. Now we need to put this back on. All right, So those are in there. And I've made a mistake because I am an amateur. That's why this is the amateur channel. I put the focus wire under there. Okay, those are back in. Let's go ahead and secure the screws. Okay, now we need to bend those tabs back out, and I realized probably should have done that first, but it's not the end of the world. We can just use some needle nose here and turn that one and turn that one just slightly. You don't need to turn them too much. And there you have it. One repaired, working, bulletproofed Hantarex Polo. Now, as I sit here and look at this, I'm trying to remember what these two screws went to. Remind me, what did these two screws go to? I don't remember what these two screws went to. There's nothing on the chassis. The only screws in the chassis are the two on the side here. They could be the ones that are on the front here that hold it in, but I don't recall taking those out. I'll just put them in here for safekeeping. I could be losing my mind, but I don't recall those being on the chassis anywhere. Is that not the right one, or is it this one? Which one is it? Pretty sure it's this one. Somebody jogged my memory where those came from. And I could just be spares or extras that were sitting up there that I forgot about. So, but anyway, there you have it. And hopefully you learned something. Like I say, I'll post down below all the part numbers and locations of all these caps. I highly recommend and demand, if you will, to replace all 9 of those caps. Whenever you work on one of these coming across the bench, or you take one off to recap it, I can't stress enough, replace all these caps, because they'll just give you issues later down the road. And now that these have all been replaced, I'm confident the HOT will last. Unless the flyback goes out, this should be good to go for many years to come. So that's about it. Thank you very much for watching. I have, in the next video on the channel will be another Polo that's in worse shape than this one. So that one may be a little bit more adventurous. Nothing was actually wrong with this one. We just needed to do a rebuild and then an overview. And I wanted to discuss the ins and outs and the important stuff to go through when you work on one of these. So that being said, again, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Comment down below what you thought. Check out the description for this stuff again, and stay tuned for the next video where we'll dive into another Hantarex Polo that's in much worse shape than this one. Thank you very much.